Yeah, lots of stuff going on.
There surely is.
Yes.
And it's the time of year where everybody is getting back into the sewing, whether
Yep.
it's I'm making Christmas presents, whether it's I'm making Halloween costumes,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. It's definitely becoming the busy time of year
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So when we were planning out this,
It's Windy Wednesday.
it is,
Yeah.
yes, it looks so beautiful looking out the window.
Mm-hmm.
It's
We
not,
can see the trees.
they're moving a little bit,
Yeah.
but we don't have much of an opening in front of us for
Right.
too much wind. But when I went out earlier, I was like, oh, the sun's nice, but it's
Yeah.
not hot.
No.
It's
Mm-mm.
not hot. But
No, I think we were only like 64. Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, we're getting in that time of year where it's going to start cooling off. You notice I got my heavy sweater on. Sarah's actually wearing a sweatshirt.
Only because I wore a tank top because I thought you for sure you were going to turn the heat on.
I figured I wasn't going to be here, so I would leave that up to you guys. So I was not going to make you all uncomfortable for the next week and a half, and I wasn't here. So I was like, I'll wear really heavy clothes. So hello, Miss
right.
Jane and Shirley and Connie
Connie.
and all the rest
Yeah.
of you who are out there but haven't commented, which of course is fine.
Yes.
Hello to you too.
Yeah, and hopefully you're on this side of the hurricane, not on
Yes.
the might get a little crazy this afternoon. Hope you all stay very, very safe.
Yeah, it is a crazy world out there
scary
right now.
Weather we're having, two kind of back to back. It's just nuts.
It is just that.
Yes.
But it's a great kind of time to stay inside and sew.
It is.
So maybe
Hi,
that's
Marge.
the perfect thing for you.
Yeah.
So kind of the thought behind today's live is that a lot of times our Christmas presents, but more so a Halloween costume, we've got maybe some sequins or some funky fabrics that are going to put a lot of fuzz or random things in our machine that aren't supposed to be there. We thought we would talk about machine maintenance because it's a very important thing. And as much as we're super happy to fix and clean your machines for you, sometimes you need to do some stuff at home so that you can keep sewing because you can't bring it in. So that was the thought for today's, was that maybe we can keep you sewing
longer without having to come to the ER.
Happier without coming to the ER. Exactly. So.
Oh, my dad is in hurricane zone. He's in central Florida, though. So
he's going to get some wind and some water, but.
Yeah, and my brother and sister-in-law are down there, and they decided to stay, though I did try to discourage them from staying. I'm like, they could have gone to Ken's house in Tennessee, but they're there. So the house has been through more than one hurricane, and they should be okay.
Yeah.
But the wind is the unpredictability part.
Absolutely.
What it picks up, and
there's been some crazy images out there of what water and wind can do without you really even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But not your dad, but I kept hearing on the guys talking. Jeff's really into watching the weather live casters and things like. He's really into that. So that we've had multiple shows on this week. He was like, make sure that you bring your iPad so we can have the hurricane on and I can see what's going on. Okay. But they were talking about Bradenton. Do you know who's got a place in Bradenton?
I do.
And I was like, oh, I wonder because he's not down there. So
no, we had someone who lives in the complex with him yesterday, and she was just be like, we don't know. Her husband was like, maybe we should leave tomorrow to start driving down. That way they would get there like
afterwards and could take care of whatever problems might arise.
But she's like, what if they don't let us in?
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, you don't know what you're going to be driving into for sure.
But we hope everybody who watches us or is customers is staying safe. And if you are on the other side, it might not seem like we know you very well, but we recognize your name. So send us an email and let us know that you're all okay.
Yeah, most definitely.
For sure.
We always worry.
Yeah.
We have so many of you sprinkled all over the states that,
Yeah, it is crazy. We had another gal in Nancy yesterday. She's gonna go and visit friends in
Hmm.
the Carolinas, and she's like, the road that she normally takes is completely washed out from the previous version. So she's like, I have to take a different
Yeah.
route, and it's just been really, really crazy. We've been very lucky. It hasn't been
We haven't had much of anything here,
no,
and
just a couple dumpster fires.
just a couple dumpster fires. I really don't get. I just don't get it. But okay. But yeah, my nephews were supposed. They're very big in baseball. And they
Mm-hmm.
travel teams. They got the school teams, but they got the travel
Yeah,
teams,
yeah.
and they play baseball all the time. And they live
Mhm.
down in Virginia, but they play tournaments in Florida and
Yeah.
Georgia. I mean,
Yeah.
they play all over. And they were at a tournament, and Grandma and Grandpa went down to watch and everything, and tournament got canceled because of the weather. And they're down where Jeff's watching all of the videos. He's like, I know right where that road is. I know what that's exactly da da da, and he was like, I know exactly where that is. And I'm just like, it's really cool that you can do that, but it's super annoying. I mean, you can see a picture on TV and be like, oh, that's blah blah blah, this exit. And you're just like, how? But
right.
he drove it.
So many
He has
times,
driven
yeah.
that so many times going down to visit, where the bridges, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all just outside of where family lives down there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've had canceled schools, and it's just been nuts.
So crazy.
So
Yes.
we hope that everyone is staying safe and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
taking the precautions that you need.
Unplug your
So,
sewing machines.
yes.
And if you're in the, I mean, this
And
seems like
if
a
you
crazy thing.
store
Put
it-
them up.
If you store them on the floor, put them on a table.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we have seen flooded machines
Yeah.
come in here, and a lot of times there isn't anything that can be done because the water damage is just too much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a couple feet off the floor.
Yeah. The higher you can
Higher
get
the
them,
better.
the better.
So yes, get
Mhm.
all of those kinds of things off the floor for sure.
Yep.
So
For sure. Karen's in Missouri. She made it. Okay.
hello,
So,
hello. All right, so let's talk
machine
about this beautiful
maintenance.
guy that we've got in front of us.
Yes, and if you guys have questions about some sort of maintenance thing that we haven't talked about, or you're having trouble with, plop those up in the comments, and we'll answer those on the fly. So,
Yep,
Okay.
sounds perfect. So the machine that we are currently showing here is the Brother NQ 3700. So it has an 8.3-inch throat. So we've got many sewing machines that are basically on this frame,
mhm.
as well as 6x10 combo machines. There's a slew of them out there.
Yes,
And
so many.
I mean a slew of them, which is why we chose this, because this part here is pretty much the same, but a lot of you are going to look at this and go, oh, that's the same size as mine.
Yes.
So that's why we chose this.
Yeah, pretty much up until you get to the Luminaire, this is
This
basically
is
how the
pretty
plate
much
comes
what's
off.
happening. So the
Yeah.
XJ2 does have that little bit of a different plate now,
Mhm.
but
It
only
didn't
if you have the
before.
most current version. Before that, it was just like this.
Yeah, and only the combo
So-
one.
And only the combo. That is
So-
absolutely correct. So I am going to pop the foot off, which of course is just this little lever in the back here. And I usually just put it up by my thread.
Mhm.
It just gives me a little bit more wiggle room without hitting my screwdriver
Yep.
on the little edges of the foot. So if
Right.
I know I'm going to be working in this space, I will just
Yep.
pop my foot off for a second.
And then do you take your needle out too so you don't poke yourself?
It depends. Am I doing a thorough cleaning where I'm going to be in there a lot,
Right.
or am I just doing something really quick because I know I've got a jam or something like
Right.
that? So protecting yourself is always a good plan.
Right.
So it does hurt when you scrape your finger underneath that needle. So, and again, I'm going to just put that, not throwing it away. It's
Mhm.
it's fine. We're just going to get it out of the way. So I'm putting it right up here by my thread.
Yep. Gives us a little more room
thread
down
spool.
there.
It just gives us more working space, and I don't have to go
Worry about
ow.
Yes.
No bleeding in our projects. So
Jane says she was embroidering and she broke a needle and I couldn't find the end of it. What should I do? Well, we're going to show you.
it's a great question. So when we are working this, a lot of times we can take off this little plastic L part here without having to take off the needle plate.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to take off your needle plate, don't, because
Right.
that's just more work and more opportunity for error. But we're gonna dig down deep today,
Yep.
so we're gonna do that. But this plate pushes towards you and then releases. And unless you take it out, your bobbin cover will stay in there. So unless you pop that loose, it will stay there.
Right. And there's a little divot in the back where you probably couldn't see where she
Yep,
put her
right
finger.
here.
Yep. And
There's
that's
a little dent
so
in
you're
the,
yeah, that's where she
and
was
that's
kind of
where your
pulling
finger
down.
hold, you just push right there in that
Yep.
little position right here. So from here, if all we need to do is look for pieces of our needle, check our bobbin, maybe we did take the needle plate off previously and we didn't get everything put back together right.
That never happens.
Never happens. So we can take the bobbin out of the bobbin case, and I can take the bobbin case out. And again, any of the machines that look like this is going to be relevant for. There are a few very entry-level machines that have a different needle plate system. It's all one. There's no two-part system. But we're not going to cover that because we don't really sell very many of those.
No.
So we're just going to cover here. So here we've got, oh, there's some fuzz in here.
Yeah, I picked a good one. There's
You
lint.
did.
Yeah. I bet we can probably zoom in a little so they can see. It's fuzzy.
It is fuzzy.
There we go.
Can you see that purple in there? So that's not supposed to be purple in there. So, think about just a hair. All right. So in here, we can find lots of things that aren't supposed to be in there, as well as sometimes, like Jane was saying, we broke a tip of a needle and we just need to find that. So these are nice little brushes, and you can see there's a little bit of fuzz in there. So what's the harm in having fuzz in there? Well, once upon a time, we actually had a customer come in and ask for the felt piece that went inside of there.
Yeah.
They had so much fuzz that it had packed itself in and created a felted piece that sat underneath. Well, the bobbin case was lifting up because of that, and things weren't stitching well, which is why she thought she needed a new one.
Right.
But you don't want this in there because it prevents your bobbin case from being able to spin properly. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, you should clean this out way more often than you think.
Absolutely.
What
like
happens,
once a year?
Yeah, totally.
What do you mean?
Like every time you finish a project, if you really want to keep your machine working as well as it possibly can, you definitely want to make sure that after you're done with your project, before you start your next project, this is one of those things that you should be doing kind of as you're preparing. You should be taking stock at the needle that you have and then figuring out what you need.
So this is a really great little set of brushes. They really grab the stuff in there really well. It's only $5 and you get all 3 different sizes, which is really great. In a pinch, you can use a Q-tip. We certainly have all probably done that at some point. Is there any downside to using a Q-tip?
It can leave a little bit of fuzz, and it can also like suck up all of the oil that's in the machine, and then that can dry that area out. But also, you know, we're all kind of, we're all getting a little more conscious about like maybe not adding all kinds of different things to the trash and stuff like that. So this, you can, when you're done with these, they can literally just be rinsed in the sink.
And they'll dry.
And they'll dry right out because they're kind of like a little rubbery sponge.
Yeah, they're very flexible. Even just flicking this.
Fling it at yourself.
Like this, the dust is like flying off. So if you have allergies, don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can get a whole lot out just by moving to this point here. And, you know, if you've got a stray thread that just doesn't want to come, grab a pair of tweezers and grab the thread out.
Exactly.
We had an event here last weekend, and we had a lot of cutting and jumping, and we had a couple people that had some threads wrapped in the knife system, which is right here, underneath, right there. And that will prevent your thread from cutting properly, and then you end up with a bunch of yuck. So if you have a thread there, you want to get that out as well. So maybe I put everything back in and I try stitching and this isn't enough. There's still something else going on.
Right.
One thing that you can do to check for broken needles, you can turn your hand wheel a complete rotation. So you'll be able to see that this is going to spin. And if I can get that to spin all the way around, there's nothing blocking my stitches.
Hmm.
And if I have a missing part of a needle, it's okay.
Yeah. It's probably down
It's
far.
probably fallen all the way down below, and you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, and you don't have to pick up. You don't have to pick up your machine and try to shake it out.
No,
it's okay.
don't stress that.
Yeah.
So get out everything you can, of course. And a lot of times you'll take out this bobbin case here, and you'll see the piece of needle sitting
Right in
it's
there.
right there.
Yeah.
Or
Or
low,
stuck.
maybe it's stabbed through here
Yeah.
or something like that, right? But those, so get out everything that you can,
Mhm.
and then make sure that your hand wheel is moving freely.
Yep.
And then you can put it back together and try sewing again.
Mhm.
Maybe that'll fix your problem, and maybe it won't.
Right.
If you have sequins, if you have glitter, if you have a lot of batting
Yep.
or real fuzzy type of fabric, you're going to get a lot more buildup in here much faster.
Mhm.
And you will see some stitch quality deterioration based on gunk in there.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah,
sure.
everybody thinks that that doesn't really affect anything because it's underneath the bobbin case, but it really does. It affects how the bobbin case rotates
Yep.
inside of there.
It's not moving smoothly like
Yes.
it's supposed to because there's stuff in its way.
Yeah, and when you're cleaning all of this out, there is a little felt pad over by your knife system.
Very important that it stay
It's
there.
supposed to stay there. Yes.
Yes. So it looks like this little gray guy, and it's located right over here. So when you're pulling fuzzies out, you don't want to remove that felt pad because that's actually what brushes the thread into position for it to be cut. So
Yep.
when it comes out there, it brushes that, and that keeps the knife clean.
Mhm.
So if you don't have that there, you're going to end up with a lot more stuff wrapped around your knife
Right.
because it won't be brushing it freely.
Yep. Mary wants to talk about oiling the area.
Yes, but I'm going to wait until I take the rest
Yeah,
off before I get there.
We promise we're going to cover that.
Yep. So talking about felt pads, it is also very important we don't remove these felt pads. We have seen this happen a lot. So when you're cleaning this, those are supposed to be there. Don't rip them off.
Right.
If you rip it off,
need
we'll
a new
happily sell you a new one.
Yeah.
But you're going to need a new one for sure. You
And-
can't just put them back in.
When you're taking this out, inspect your bobbin case because there is a lot of stuff that can go and get stuck in there. And we are going to spend an entire afternoon talking very specifically about the different bobbin cases, but definitely brush that all off as well and make sure that the needle isn't actually stuck in your bobbin case.
What do I do if my needle's stuck or I have a big hole from a previous needle puncture?
Well, you probably need to get yourself a new bobbin case.
Most likely.
In the meantime, sometimes you can file the little rough area down.
Like sandpaper.
Like with
or something
sandpaper or something like that. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just in a really bad spot, and that's just
absolutely.
not possible.
And you don't want to change the shape of the bobbin case. If you're
Right.
having to sand so much, that's not what we're talking about.
No.
All right, so to remove the needle plate, we've got a couple different options. Most of this size machine came with a screwdriver. Yes, this is a screwdriver that looks something like this. I absolutely love this screwdriver.
Right.
Probably my favorite go-to guy
Yeah,
for
it's
lots of different things.
Very easy to use.
It's very easy. You can put a ribbon or a tie or something to make it easier to find in your drawer. But what this does is it actually fits right there on your needle plate, and you can loosen that screw. Now, what I generally do is I'll loosen it enough that I can then use my finger when I can. I won't use the screwdriver the whole time, so you do have to get it loose enough that your finger is going to actually do anything there. But if I can, I will use my finger, not my screwdriver, because it's just a lot easier.
Right.
This is, again, what's going to come with a very large portion of this size machine. This is another great tool. It is the multi-position screwdriver. So we've got a position here, we've got a position here, and we've got a position here. So this one here is going to be to change your needle or to change your foot. This one down here was actually designed for your needle plate. So you can literally get right in there, try to keep my hand out, and you can see that it fits right inside of there. So it literally was designed for that, and that is the multi-purpose position.
Multifunction.
Function,
Or
function, I think function.
multi-positionable. Yeah.
Usually this is like really fast for me, but evidently my
The
fingerprint,
pressure.
my fingerprints took off the tip. Got fingerprinted, and it's messed up my fingers.
You want some help?
Nah, I got it. I'll just use the screwdriver because my finger's not really working.
I always say when no one is watching, the plate comes off super
It comes
easy
off
for
super
me.
easy.
And as soon as somebody asks me to show them how, I'm like, oh, this is the most awkward thing I've ever done. Like, I've never done it before.
You start fumbling. It looks like you
Right.
don't know what you're doing, kind of like what I'm doing right now.
Right.
Which is why I like to use my finger whenever possible. But I am just having a heck of a time here. I don't think that's spinning.
It is not.
It is not.
But you definitely get an A for effort there.
I tried.
You were trying really
I was
hard.
trying multiple times. 16th time's the charm, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, if
This
you
is why
drop
we
one of
pay
these,
Tony the big bucks, right?
oh, most definite, absolute. If you drop one of those screws in your machine, you do need to find it.
Yes.
All right. So try to not do that. And then the needle plate comes off. And there's lots more fuzz back here. So sometimes you don't need to take that back plate off to fix your quote unquote problem. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't take it off at some
Right.
point because there's going to be so much more fuzz.
It was a little fuzzy.
Yeah, what were you doing?
Sewing.
Sewing fuzzy fabric, probably.
Yeah, so you got a nice clump. There's not only fuzz, but some threads, probably little trimmed pieces that
Mhm.
just got pushed back down there.
Yeah,
And
they
again,
gotta go someplace,
they
right?
got to go somewhere, and you don't want them to stay in there. This is phenomenal for cleaning inside of your feed dogs because it just moves all of it.
You can't do that with a Q-tip. Oh,
You
it makes
cannot.
such a
It
mess.
just makes more of a mess.
Yeah.
So these are definitely fantastic brushes if you don't have a set. Again, they're only $5 and they are totally worth every penny. So, all right. How are we doing?
It's looking pretty good. It's looking a lot better.
Yep. So you can also, I know a lot of people are like, well, I have a mini vacuum. And
Yeah.
of course you can use all that kind of thing.
Yeah, the more you suck out, the better off it is.
Yep. The less stuff that you've got in there, the better. All right. So once you have everything, you got some.
There's a,
Yeah.
looked like there was a big chunk there.
I think there's something underneath. Oh yeah, there's still something there.
I'm not getting it.
Nope.
There it is. Oh, got it.
Oh, I was gonna tweezers also work. So, you know, if you see a clump of something that you just can't quite grab, stick your tweezer in there and grab hold of it.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Just be careful. You're not removing
Your felt.
your felt. Thread and fuzz is fine,
Yes.
not your felt pad back there. And the felt pad is gray and it's right here. So if it's white, purple,
Yeah.
what,
Any of the colors of
then
thread that
then
you
you
use.
know it's okay to pull that out. But that little gray brush of felt pad in there, you do not want to remove. Now at this point, we've got pretty much everything cleaned out. Just trying to get all of this out of the way so you guys can see. Sometimes you'll want to clean off your needle bar as well.
It gets really dusty.
It gets
up
very, very dusty up there because everything's kind of getting pushed
there. Mm-hmm.
up into the machine. So cleaning off this area up here is also a very, very good idea. So you've got a couple different things that are happening now that you can access and see.
Mm-hmm.
So if we tell you, you know, hey, you can oil your machine, we're talking a drop
Mm-hmm.
of oil,
Yes.
not a squirt bottle, squirt, squirt, squirt. Don't do that.
Mm-mm.
You're going to end up with a lot of oil in your project and it's going to gum up and make a hot mess
Yes.
underneath in there. When you do get fuzzies in there, that oil is going to just grab it and it's going to get gross
Yeah.
and it's going to be harder to clean.
Yes.
So a drop of oil, and you're going to put a drop inside the bobbin area.
Mhm.
And then I know that, you know, Tony does different things
Yes.
than what you would do at home. But when I've asked him, he said, you know, you can also oil just a drop right here. And I don't think you can see it from here. This is what's going to move and rotate the systems that are
Mhm.
in there too. So you can't see them so much, but putting drops of oil where metal meets metal.
Mhm.
But again, do not over oil. You will
Mm-mm.
regret it.
Right.
Okay. So you want to add anything else to that?
No. Basically, you've got your bobbin case here, and we
It
have
has
that
a
little
metal
metal
circle.
piece. So what we're trying to do is, we just put a little dab right there because that's where the metal
meets metal.
meets the metal. So that's it, just one little drop.
Yep. And oil, you certainly can get different oils for
Yeah.
sure. What we offer here is the Zoom Spout Oiler. And the reason it's called that is because it's exactly what it does. Our spout zooms out. And so you have a flexible that you can get specifically to
Wherever
where,
you need.
and you can actually see the bubble of oil moving through that tube, so you know exactly when the oil is going to come out.
Yep.
This is fantastic. It does, of course, come with the lid.
Yep.
I don't recommend chucking the lid. I keep my lid.
Mhm.
Lord knows I knock things over all the time, and I don't want anything oozing out and,
Right.
and whatnot. So I definitely will keep that in there. So you're going to put a drop of oil in here. If you feel like I got to oil more than just one spot, you can place those that will help keep
Yeah.
everything moving smoothly.
I
But that is it.
yes,
do
do
not
not put
add
it
more.
anyplace else. The only
Nothing
place I
else.
buy, I only just do it underneath my bobbin. So
So here is where we get the most probably mistakes, we'll
Mhm.
call them,
Yep.
is how to put all this back together.
Right.
So the most commonly done thing at this point is this is the easiest time to put this in.
Right.
So I'm going to just put this in place and I'm going to make sure it's lined up and all that good jazz. But that is so much easier to put in there, right?
Right.
Is that okay?
No,
No?
no, it should be,
Oh,
but it's not.
no, it's not. And
You have
what's
to
going to
work harder.
happen is if you put this in and then you put this in, it's actually going to pinch on that bobbin case and it's not going to allow it to move freely.
Right.
And you're going to end up with a super hot mess.
Yes.
And you'll be calling us.
And you're going to be like, and it's funny because when you tell
I
us,
cleaned my
I
machine.
cleaned my machine and now it's not working. And then we ask you, did you take the top part off? We already know what the answer is.
There's no need to cover, guys. We
And
already
we
know
don't-
what you're supposed to be saying at this point.
Right. And honestly, when we ask those questions, we don't care.
There's no judgment.
We're not judging you. We're just, if when you say yes, we're saying, okay, great. So we know exactly what happened. Here's how to avoid it.
Right.
It's
And
not
it's also something that you can ask yourself in your head.
yes.
Yeah. If we ask you, you're going to be like, well, what did they ask me?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And that'll help you remember.
And it's really easy to do this. I mean, it's just so easy to do it because even if you've done this a million times, sometimes we're rushing. Like it broke at a really bad time. I needed
Yep.
to clean my machine out. It is, I've got 5 more minutes. I've got 7 minutes of stitching. I'm really trying to rush here. And you don't even think about doing it. And it's like they say, the hurrier you go, the further behind you get.
Yeah.
It totally happens. And again, you can have done this a million times before and accidentally put this together the wrong way. It is just one of those things that is super easy to do. And again, there is zero judgment when we ask you
Absolutely
that. We're
none.
just going to be like, hey, this is
All
what
right,
happened.
great. We
So,
know how to fix your problem.
Yeah.
So once you have everything ready, we are going to put the metal plate back on first. So get that positioned. It really only goes in one spot. So I have seen people put this on incorrectly. I'm always very impressed because I'm like, how did you
get in
do
the hole?
that? How did you get that to screw in? So again, we don't want, oh, see, now it's screwing in just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Little turkey butt. And I am going to tighten these as much as I can easily with my finger. That's moving. I spoke too soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we want to tighten these down. So it's not a tighten just a little bit till you get the rest put together. This is tighten this in place.
So Jane said, is it bad I don't oil my machine and I leave it for my yearly cleaning? Bad is definitely the wrong word.
It's better if you don't.
Right. I mean, honestly, the manual doesn't tell you that you need to do this at all. It's just one of those things that the thing that we hear people say who use their machine a lot is my machine sounds louder.
Yep.
Like it's a little noisier than it was, after I brought it home for cleaning. Is there something wrong?
Is it time for me to bring it in again?
Right. And it really is usually the noise factor has a lot to do with the bobbin about it getting dry underneath there. So by putting a little drop of oil in there, the machine quiets down. It doesn't make a better stitch if you have oil under there. It's just
The smoothness of the
right.
machine
It
flowing.
feels a little smoother because, again, there is just a little bit of buffer between the bobbin and the bobbin case. But it still is going to sew just fine. So there's no reason that you have to do this. It's just one of those things that it's a little thing that you can do extra. I think that maybe it gives you a little more longevity between cleanings because a lot of times it's an audible noise that people
Right.
are that my machine sounds different.
Yep.
You know, I had it in 11 months ago and it sounds different. And a lot of times maybe
It's dried out.
it's dried out, right? Because you're using it, you're cleaning it, you're using it, you're cleaning it because that's what you're supposed to do, or you're using it and
if
you're not cleaning it.
especially if you're using Q-tips,
Yeah.
it's going to pull the oil out of the machine
Exactly.
because that cotton in there is going to absorb it and pull
right.
out the moisture. So if you are using them, again, thanks, Jane. If you're using those Q-tips,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't. Just pay attention so that you're counteracting something that might happen there. Q-tips are easy. They're cheap. They're
Readily available.
readily
Sometimes you have them.
available. You know, yet I don't feel guilty if I'm using one and I chuck it because that's the whole point, right?
Right.
So it's
You're not
definitely
supposed
there.
to use them in your ears anymore.
Yeah, I totally follow that rule. But yeah, so we're going to add oil, especially if we are using
Yep.
cottons. If you're using vacuums and things like that, it's not pulling oil out, it's pulling fuzz out. So just pay attention to how you're cleaning it, and then
Right.
that will
if
also
it's like spit shined in there, you're probably gonna need a drop.
probably need a drop of oil. All right, so at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I have actually put this on and gone, oh crap.
I do it every time.
I mean, we all do it,
because
right?
I'm so conscious about making sure I put my bobbin case last.
last thing it goes in. So this needs to be completely in place before we put our bobbin case back in. Your bobbin case is going to look pretty much like this. Again, we're going to talk more about that in depth later on this month. But you're going to go in at an angle. So obviously it doesn't just drop in here. So you've got to tip that in, and then you got to do a little shimmy dance to get it fit. So there is a white dot right here, and there is a white arrow right here. So you can see the white arrow on my case very clearly. It's a little harder to see the little bit that's right here. You can see it, I think, but your goal is to line those up. So you're going to just shimmy a little bit, and it's always harder when people are watching.
I know, right?
Or with stupidly long nails. All right, and then we go in there. So again, I can check, and I can see my white dot is right here, and my white arrow, and it is pointing to that white dot. That is my visual check of, yep, I put that in the right way.
Yep.
All right. The other thing that I like to see is this straight line of the bobbin case kind of flows along with the needle plate there. So it's another visual thing that you can check. If that line is angled, it's not in right.
Right.
And you can shove your bobbin case in there incorrectly.
Yeah.
Don't do that, but you can do it.
You can. You can also turn your hand wheel at this point because
and make sure it turns.
You don't have a needle in there, so you don't have to worry about anything. So when you turn your hand wheel, everything should.
If this goes like this, it's not in right.
Right, and
if
so
this jumps out of.
Exactly, but you see that little shimmy that it's doing? That's what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
When you put this on first,
it can't do that. It pinches it in place.
It does. You don't get that shimmy, and if you don't have the little shimmy, it doesn't make a stitch.
Yep. So there we go.
That's normal.
So then this has little notches that lock everything in place. So you put it on a little towards the front. You need to have that little gap, and then it locks in place.
Yeah.
And then we can put our bobbin back in.
Right.
So.
And many of our machines have a plate sensor, so the machine knows when there is a plate
has been removed.
Off.
Yep.
And that is a sensor that actually can go bad on a machine. So it does occasionally happen. If you get that suddenly after you have cleaned your machine, pull that off and put that back on just to make sure that you
That
actually
you
got it
didn't
on.
bump it out of.
Right, that you
position.
just didn't put
Yep.
it on right. So that does sometimes happen.
I mean, this is all important stuff, and the reason that we are talking about it is so that you can do it confidently
Yes.
on your own.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you can't mess it up.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about the mistakes that can
Exactly.
be made and that kind of thing.
And that
So
are super
is that
common.
going to happen? It's over here,
Right.
and you can actually push on it, and your machine will think your plate's back on, and so
Right.
on and so forth. But if you don't get these put back in right, then it's not reading properly. And so that's where you're getting that error message
Yep.
from. So if you're getting a needle plate error message and you're like, but I have it on, just go backwards and put it back
Right.
together until you get into a comfortable where it's not yelling at you
Right.
anymore.
And you shouldn't be forcing everything. So if it's not, it's supposed to go back together. If it's not going back together correctly, take it back off and try again, because it definitely fits snug, but you shouldn't have to struggle. Like you shouldn't be like going, oh my God, what did Sarah and Lisa tell me to do? I'll never get it back together. It shouldn't be like that.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to spin this just a little bit. So on the end of here, there is a screw here. And down here, there is a screw at the bottom as well. Both of these caps will come off to the left. So if you have a large piece of needle and you hear it bouncing in there and it's driving you just absolutely bonkers.
Crazy. Yeah.
Again, it's not hurting the machine. It's out of the machine's mechanisms and
Right.
things, but it's driving you nuts. The first thing I would do is I would take the cap off here, and you'd probably see it sitting in there. It might
Yep.
even come out in the cap itself and
Yep,
just be
that
sitting
does
in
happen.
there. So that is just a standard Phillips head on both of these. And some machines will have little white caps that cover the screws. Some of them don't. Tony will know if you take them off. When you bring it in, you're like, no, I didn't take that off. He's gonna be like, liar. No, he's not.
I got your number.
But he does know, he puts them on and in a whatever fashion that he knows where they're at and
Right.
whatnot. So he can diagnose a little better. So I've taken this screw out right here. And is there a second one on the back? I think there's a second one on the back on this one. Yep. Spin. So back here we've got, I know you can't quite see that, can you? Right here?
Yep.
We've got a second screw. And these are, I can't see what I'm doing though, is the problem. There we go.
Yep, it is important to get it in the hole.
You don't want to strip that screw because you're, and again, we don't want to lose those screws. It's a great thing to magnetize the end of your screwdriver so that they kind of hang on to them so they don't go flying. Nice little tip on there. So let's just push this way a little bit. So at this point, this will literally just slide towards me. All right.
Yep.
So we've got all kinds of things that we can see. Now, should you start moving screws and
No.
changing things and checking springs and no, don't do any of those things. But what you can do here is check your check spring area, which is right here. And you have probably had that conversation with us because
Yeah.
it is extremely common.
Do we want to tip it? I can tip the camera up. Do you think we should?
Let's try that.
Okay.
So in here, you have a check spring, and it's literally a little piece of wire, and it's got a little hook, and it sits in a little groove. What happens a lot of time is we'll get a shredded, like that accordion looked, and it'll ball itself up around that.
Yep.
And we go to pull our thread out, and it won't move.
Right.
And the most common thing we do is we get it, and it's coming out of the machine. You can literally, it's stuck right here, and we're pulling.
Yep.
And we're trying to get that out, and it doesn't work.
Right.
Okay? Because it's never easy. You can't just pull down this way and cut because it's stuck.
Because it's stuck.
So you can get a little bit of access in here. This piece here does come off. You've got to put a little screwdriver in here and pop that off. I tried to not have to do that because then I have to put it back in.
Right.
So if I can get to my threads and whatnot, I'm going to do that. And this gives you a whole lot of access.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot cleaned out in here without having to do anything further.
Right.
And you can see right in here. So literally it's going to be right in this area right
Mhm.
here. And you'll see that it is caught and you've got a wadded up piece of yuck.
Yeah. So
So-
let's think about this for a minute. When we're embroidering, we change our thread so many times, right? Just a ton of times. The thread path, the natural thread path, is to go from the spool of the thread to here. So it's going in this direction. What happens is as we pull the thread, or what happens as we yank the thread, because that's really what happens. We get in a hurry and we start pulling that thread back. Well, it starts to affect this spring
Yep.
here.
It literally will bend it,
Yes.
or
Break it.
actually pull it out of position.
Yeah.
So there's a
So the
small
spring is sprung.
the spring has been sprung at that point. And though you could push it back into position, if you've bent the living daylights out of it,
It's not going back.
you're going to need it replaced.
Right.
So do be careful. Don't just keep pulling. If you have something caught in here, take your end cap off and check.
Mhm.
Again, tweezers are a wonderful tool you can get in lots of small places. That's why I like my precision tip tweezers, because it's a
Mhm.
lot easier to grab hold of smaller little pieces of thread
Right.
and pull that out. You can snip to where you have smaller sections so that you're not continuously pulling on there. And that is probably the most common thing outside of your bobbin case being put incorrectly
Mhm.
back in the machine. Having something wrapped on your check spring
And it
is
can-
very, very common.
And it causes all kinds of havoc with your
It
machine.
surely does.
It can make thread nesting. It can do all kinds of shredding. It can tell your machine will tell you it's constantly not threaded.
Yep. And
Um,
it'll stitch 10 to 15 stitches and it will say,
Yeah, check upper thread.
check upper thread.
Yes.
So if you're getting that I'm stitching about 15 stitches and it's stopping,
Mm-hmm.
I rethread everything,
Mhm.
or I think I'm rethreading everything,
Right.
you probably have a ball of yuck
Hopefully,
stuck in there.
You have
Hopefully
a
that's
ball of
all
yuck.
it is.
Yes.
But that is the most common thing, is that your check spring is no longer in the right position and it's
Right.
bent out.
Right.
And that you can maybe just pull something out there and make it work.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, I always say to people, this is like the Achilles tendon on all sewing machines. It's not a brother baby lock thing. It is every brand of machine has a check spring, and the check spring, because it's a spring, is always the weak link in the machine.
It is a weak link because it's bendable and it moves, and that's the whole point.
Right, because it has to be.
It has to be able to move around in spring.
Yeah, and that's why so many people talk about cutting the thread near the spool and pulling out
to the needle.
Yes.
Through the needle.
Through the needle.
Instead. So if you can unthread past this section,
Yep.
you're in the clear.
Right.
If you are pulling
Mm-hmm.
backwards, you are going to get check spring errors
One
regularly.
time. Yeah.
big
yeah.
time.
It will happen. If it
It might
hasn't
not
happened,
happen every time, but it will happen.
eventually.
If your thing is, I'm changing my thread and you're literally yanking it back,
Mhm.
so that you don't have to waste any thread,
Right.
you will
It will happen eventually.
have a knot in here at some point,
Yeah.
because you're going to get a shredded, frayed
Mhm.
section, and it's going to start to
Mhm.
make a
And
mess
that's
inside there.
typically when it happens. It happens, you get just that little, and now it's not smooth. So you've
Right,
got,
it's
you don't
not
have
smooth.
anything
That's
smooth coming out,
exactly
and
what's going
so
on.
it gets stuck. So yeah, it's
Hello again, Lois.
totally going to happen at some point. We guarantee you
So,
at one point in your life.
This little guy, there's no real magic. You're just going to kind of
Wiggle.
wiggle until you get it lined up to where it was before. And you're going to put the screws back in.
Yep.
There is nothing complicated about this except not losing your screws.
Yeah, that is the hardest part.
A very easy little thing. When you take that off, put your cap so it's sitting up like a cup and drop the screws inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
It will at least help them not be rolling around on the table and onto the floor like
On
a
the floor,
meatball.
like your meatball.
No meatballs. And then we're just going to tighten that back in and tighten the back one in as well. And we literally could start sewing again.
Yep.
Again, if you have need screw hole covers, then you could just pop that back over.
Yeah.
Honestly, they keep the dust and the yuck out of there, but they're not functional from any.
No.
It's not a very good angle, just in case anybody's wondering. really not great.
Yeah, and the screw holes, there's a tiny little like pin opening in like one of the corners of those. If you take like a little pin, you
Yep,
can pop
there's a little
that
hole.
out. Yep. It's a really small
Pins,
hole.
needles.
Yeah, pin needle. Tip of a stiletto, seam ripper. Just don't jab your sewing. I mean, you could jab your sewing machine. It won't hurt it, but
All right, I'm totally not in the right spot here. There we go. I think that was it. This is terrible. All right, I'm going to come back to this because I don't want you guys to have to sit here and watch.
I got a better
not-
angle.
Yeah, you need to, I think, loosen that one.
'Kay.
All right, so that is the basics of taking your end cap off and taking your needle plate
Yeah.
and
Tony's
bobbin
gonna be
cover
like,
area.
you two are not allowed to use the screwdriver anymore. He asked me if he wanted the power one. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think we need a power one.
He was gonna give us the drill. I was like, I mean, your little hand one would be fine, but no drill.
We don't need a drill.
No, we'll probably stab
All right.
ourselves.
So if for whatever reason, I'm gonna take all of this
Yeah.
fuzz on vacation with me. If for whatever
That's-
reason
You'll think
your
about me.
screw right, you're gonna take it all off for me. That's what I do for you. All right. So if for some reason the screws aren't going in like you expect,
Mhm.
you probably don't have that lined up quite right, and just loosen the screws and wiggle until you have that part here flush.
Yeah, you probably don't want to tighten one. You kind of want to
All
do
the
a little
way,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, a little bit at a
Just a
time.
little bit of this and a little, unlike your needle plate.
Yeah.
All right, so that is really all there is.
Yeah.
So you want to unplug that little
Yeah.
guy, and I will move it out of the way, and we'll scooch this one over.
Okay.
So our luminaire is different because
I don't know what the little
This-
silicone thing is.
there was one on the wall.
Oh,
Um,
sure. And then we'll get more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is
Do we need the light? Or do
a
we
really
not?
wicked, awesome thing because there's a little lever.
Now that you watched us struggle.
All right, there's a lever right here. I push this towards me, my whole needle plate pops off, and I have access to everything.
Right.
So nice. Absolutely. That is like the reason I wanted this machine. I was
Right?
like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, we actually have sold more than one machine because of
Because
that.
of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So here you'll notice that there then is no piece there. So when you take this out, you are going to put this in and then the entire needle plate back on.
Because it won't go in.
Because this is literally the only way to do this machine. But this machine is different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so don't do this on another machine.
Right.
All right, so it's same things here. We have the little arrow. We've got a little dot. And we are just going to do a little shimmy and it drops right into place. So it does go in nice and easy. This line here, just like I talked about before, this is kind of that extension line right there. So
Yeah.
I like to have 2-point visual because I just find that's a little bit safer for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I didn't screw that up.
Yep.
You know, you have another visual point. But you can clean this out. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Here are my little extra points if I want to add just a little bit more for smoothment of movement and all of that. But one drop here, maybe a drop in a drop. But again, we aren't over oiling because you're going to end up with more problems than you're going to help.
Right.
Okay. And then this just slides here and snaps in. They do
Ta-da!
recommend that you do this with the power off.
Yes.
Because
What happens if we do it with the power on?
it's going to yell at you
It
and tell
does.
you to do this with the power
It
off.
tells you to turn the power off.
So do you then turn your power off, or you
No,
just do what
I
you're
just
going
do
to
what I'm going to do and
then-
ignore
yes.
it. Yeah.
So if you do that and you end up causing a problem, we're going to fix it. So don't worry about it.
Right.
I like the light. So
Yeah, it's nice.
I tend to do,
Right.
if I think of it, I will do it before I turn my machine on. But I don't usually think of it because I'm like getting ready to do stuff. I turn the machine on, let it turn
Yeah.
on, and you know, set my embroidery arm, and then I'm like,
Right.
oh, I want to clean that out before I start
Mm-hmm.
because I can do it like that.
Right.
So I do that all the time, which is freaking awesome.
Yes.
But there you go.
Yeah. The more you do it, the easier it becomes,
Mhm.
and then it's less of an ordeal.
Absolutely. Same thing goes if you have needles or miscellaneous something, pin somehow, whatever that you accidentally dropped. Maybe you did drop a screw or something. Not that there's a screw on this one, but some other screw you dropped it in there
Your
because it was
screw's loose.
open, and your screws are loose, like mine are on a regular basis. You can take this little end cap off and look for little parts and things in there. The end cap up here has
It's
its
a little more
own
complicated.
own set of rules.
Yes.
So our projector is actually located on the edge of the machine over here, and we have to maneuver our upper end cap up here around that so that we don't damage the projector. I don't mean to scare you. It's not hard.
You just have to be more cautious. So
Yep. So you've got. There are 2 screws here, and then this dark gray part comes off. And then this piece underneath in here will actually, there's screws that will actually rock this out of position before that you then move that. So it's just, you have this, and then you have this. So there's just additional steps. There's videos on YouTube. I have sent people a link. It's not our video. We could do that.
Right.
Maybe we should do that.
Maybe we should do that.
But I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So if you want to just make sure you're comfortable with that, by all means.
Yeah. Or if you're local, you can come in and we'll
absolutely help you
walk you through that.
Walk you through it or do it.
Or do it for you. Yes.
So just your Luminaire or your Solaris 1, 2, or 3, you are going to need to pay attention because that has a different procedure to get that off.
Yes.
So super easy to clean everything out in here. If you do get a jam up here, you can take this end cap off like we talked about earlier. You have to follow that extra step in there to go around your projector. So just be a little careful so that you don't cause any other problems while you're trying to fix something else.
And we have had a few people in the last week or so that have popped in wanting to see the new machine. And one of the things I would like to tell people, we have a cardboard cutout, but we don't have
we have a
machine.
picture.
So
you can pretend to push buttons.
You can come in and have your picture taken with a giant picture. But
we'll take a picture with you if you really want. We'll shoot it.
It'd be like our Taylor Swift board or
right,
something. So, but we don't have one yet.
No.
So we promise that as soon as we have one, you're going to see it on these lives. And
absolutely.
We're going to be screaming from the top
that
of our
said,
lungs.
The planned time frame has not changed. So we are looking end of November, early December. If you are looking to get one of the new top of the lines, you can make a deposit to hold it. I mean, of course, you can pay in full if you want. We can do that too, but we're not expecting you to do that. But if you want to be in the list to get one sooner rather than later, just give us a buzz. We can take a deposit that'll come completely towards that.
Yes.
And we'll make sure that you get in the ordered list of I want ones.
But our brother rep has assured us that the time frame has not changed as of this point. And Baby Lock is basically just not saying anything.
They're just saying they'll get here when you get there. It's like your parents on a vacation. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah, so it's coming. It is a beautiful, beautiful machine.
I know, we can't wait.
There are so many fun, wonderful things that are in there, and we'd be more than happy to discuss those different things. And
but
you can push the cardboard. I mean, if you really want to
see the working model yet, it's just a cardboard. We could make noises. Beep.
Yeah, totally. Beep, beep. Knock, knock. We'll be like R2-D2 sitting there making different weird things. So that is what we have for you today.
Yeah.
Hopefully this helps you. Again, especially if you are working with crazy fabrics that have a lot of stuff that would be falling off.
Yep.
Glitters, even sparkle fabrics. So like, what did we have? We had like a netting that had glittered polka dots.
Tulle.
It was tulle that had glittered polka dots in it. And it was purple. The entire inside of our machine was purple.
I know. I went to change
it was like,
them up. I was like,
holy! I mean,
it looked like somebody threw up glitter in the machine.
There was a total glitter bomb happening.
It was
absolutely
totally crazy.
It was from an event, so like everybody at the event, sat down and sewed something with this, because we had the sewing machine set up because it was an embroidery event, so that way they didn't have to transition their machines. And so, like, I don't know, 30 different people did this thing. and it was a hot mess.
Yep.
So if you are using funky fabrics,
Yep.
it will cause you to need to clean your machine more often.
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. So, with that being said, clean it before, clean it after, clean it often, clean it more than you think.
You can clean it every day. When you have like this machine in particular, when it just is flip a lever, I clean it almost every time I sit down.
Yeah, it's good practice.
You know, that way I know that I don't have anything in my knife. I don't have any needle parts. I don't, I can check my bobbin case super easy and just make sure that you're going to have a wonderful sewing experience instead of what's going on now?
Yes.
So if you
Still
clean it
disappointing.
first, then you know that you've got less chance of having an issue coming up in your project. So.
All right.
Tinkerbell vomited.
Next week, we'll be talking about needles, and Lisa will be phoning in from
Phone a friend.
from her vacation.
I have no idea where I will be.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I will probably be in Yellowstone.
Okay. Well, hopefully.
So maybe I can have like buffalo in the background or something.
That'd be great. Hopefully
Wouldn't
you
that be
have a cell phone.
A very sulfury. I think I'm going to take my
Won't
puck.
be like smell-o-vision.
I think I'm going to take my puck just to make sure that I've got a good
Extra,
signal anywhere that I'm going. So, which reminds me, I need to go grab it.
You should do that because you're about to leave.
Because I'm about to go on
Yep.
vacation. So yes, that is what we have for you today. Next week, she's going to do the heavy lifting, and I'm just going to
She's gonna point out the buffalo.
point out the buffalo or maybe the geyser or
Yeah.
whatever I happen to find. I think that's where we'll be. Of course, I have no idea.
Right, because you're just the passenger.
I'm along for the ride. I go wherever he drives. That's about it. So thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. Honestly, I don't have a particular link. Please share the link for the taking off of the end cap. I don't have a particular one. Literally Google remove end cap for the Luminaire or Solar, whatever, and you'll get a ton of them. So I don't have a particular one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have found them and sent somebody that was having problems the link. And if you are having a problem, I would happily do that for you. But I don't have one at the moment specifically to just pop up there. So, but we'll have to make that when we get back because that's a great idea.
Good idea.
Okay. Have a great one. We'll see you guys next week. Nothing happening really between now and then that I can think of. Mug rugs came in. We ran out of them. We've got more on order. So, so anything else? Event order has been placed. So if you were in our gingerbread, that stuff should be coming. The placemats and whatnot should be coming very soon within the next week. And that's what we've got.
Yeah.
So you guys always know you can call or email if you have other questions, but that's what we've got for you.
Bye.
Have a great week. Happy sewing.